I drove 12 hours to play in the Maine State Championship. This is a 2-day event, long classical tournament. So it's going to be game of 90 for the first 40 moves. And then we get a 30-second bonus per move. And then we get an additional 30 minutes after the 40th move. So it's going to be a long classical tournament. Currently, we ate dinner at, people I came with, we ate dinner at Becky's here in Portland, Maine. But the tournament itself is going to be in Waterville. So about an hour and a half away. So I think we drove around 10 and a half now, and we'll finish it, drive another hour and a half to get to Waterville. So, really exciting stuff. We're going to be playing a lot of local players. They did not advertise this tournament at all. So the only people who are playing in this tournament are people who are on the Maine chess email list and me and my friend Austin. So this is it. So it's time to play some Maine players.
Today is May 16th. This is Saturday. We have 3 rounds of chess today. The first round is going to be game of 60 plus 5, and the third round is going to be the full time control, the game of 90 for the first 40 moves. And then after the 40th move, we get an additional 30 minutes. And so it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day, potentially up to 1, 2, 5, 7, maybe 7, 8 hours of chess. So could be worse, could be better. This is the hotel here, the Best Western Plus, so not too bad. Yeah, and I was looking at the pre-registered list. I'm not sure how up to date it is, but so far it's looking like Austin and I will be the 3rd and 4th seeds. So maybe another 2,000 or 2,100 will register, or maybe they've already registered, but the pre-registered list online isn't updated. But so far we're looking like to be the 3rd or 4th seed. So above Austin is a 2,200, that's like 42 years old roughly. And then there's a 2,400 who's the number 1 in the state, who's 18 years old. So I'm really excited. Hopefully I get to play some Maine Masters now. And, this location is honestly one of the best locations I have seen for a tournament ever. Here across the street here, there's a Five Guys, then there's a Taco Bell right past the Five Guys. And then there's also a Starbucks, a Walmart, and wait, can we see the logo from here? There's also a Hannaford. It's a local grocery store. I'm gonna go there and get a loyalty card. It's absolutely beautiful outside right now. It's like probably 70 degrees. It's 65 degrees, 68 degrees. It's honestly too warm for flannel weather, so I think I might change into shorts. Let's see how round 1 goes. I'm gonna try my best to put myself in a position where I get the opportunity to play the Maine Masters. So let's see how it goes.
I just completed round 1 of the Maine State Championship. I played a 1,500 who brought 4 kids, so he's a dad, and it was a very interesting game. I played knight of 3, so I actually decided after I saw him, like, okay, I'm going to play knight of 3 against this guy. I didn't know what his rating was. His rating wasn't posted at the time, but I knew that most likely I'm playing down, and I'm just going to try to get a position that doesn't require that much theory and that he won't be super familiar with. So I was trying to get him uncomfortable, and he ended up playing knight c6 on move 1, which is already bad because I played d4. So now I control the e5 square, and his knight is usually in a d pawn opening. You don't want to put your knight in front of your c pawn. And so we continue developing. And he ends up going from knight to c6 to b4, and then I go a3, he goes knight back to a6, and his knight never actually found a good home until the very end of the game, where it sacrificed itself. so that knight was actually a really big problem piece for him, and was actually the reason why I ended up throwing all of my pawns at his king. So, eventually, we do some dances. There's actually a really interesting moment where I played. He played d6. I put my knight back to g4, and he could have taken my knight, or he could have taken the pawn on e4, and after knight takes e4, play f5, forking my knights. That was actually a really interesting maneuver. I think I'm definitely still fine. I'll just put my knight on e4 back to c3, and after he takes my knight on g5 or g4, I can play queen takes, and now his light squares are still a bit weak, and I'm still perfectly fine. But that is an interesting thing to calculate. Like, what if he plays f5, and then he played queen d7, which I thought was like wild. Like, now his knight really can't develop. He really can't find a good home for his knight, and now I play knight e3, and we got this very interesting position where I have my knights on c3 and e3, and I end up his knight's still on b8 and his rook's still on a8. So I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go G4. I'm going to go H4. And I'm going to put my rook on F1, back to H1, and then play F4. And I brought my king up to G3. And I was just like fully committing to the attack. And he started getting lower on time. And ultimately, I think it was the right idea. I would love to see what the engine thinks about G4 and H4. I think by the point I get F4 in, I think I must be significantly better at the point where I play F4. But we'll see what the engine says. And then, and yeah, I think I converted that pretty nicely with queen c2, queen h2, and queen h6, and there's nothing he can really do as far as I'm aware. So that was a very interesting game, and I just saw the pairings. I am playing against the 18-year-old FIDE master, who is the best player in Maine. So that's my next opponent, so I am excited. I just lost to the best Maine player in the world, and it was a very interesting game, actually. It was an advanced Caricon where I pushed c5 early on. He took it, and early in the game, there was a couple moments where he thought for 12 minutes on each of his moves, like in like a 2-move time span. And I just knew that he was trying to figure out how to keep the game going and how to make sure he has an advantage, because he's definitely trying to win every game. So I could definitely tell that that he was trying to come up with ideas. And every time I thought he was done asking questions, he came up with more questions. I was actually very happy to play f6. Like, I played it pretty quickly, and then when he played bishop check, I went king f8. I played all that super quickly. Well, not super quickly, but I was kind of confident in my position. Like, I know that this position is solid and that I know what I'm doing. And then he offers a queen trade, which I was like really surprised by. And so I traded, and I traded knights, and then I traded bishops. And I knew he could play the only way to try to win that game is play b4 after we trade bishops, and I knew that. And I knew after b4 that, maybe I'll play the move a4. And then I saw that he could play the move b5. And it got a bit complicated, but I thought, okay, I think it's all fine for me. But there was something. So I went for it. So I traded bishops, and then played b4. I played a4. Actually, I did not play a4. Actually, he actually. I was really worried about e5 after I played a4, and then I had to move my rook back, and then there was situations where his rook could infiltrate on the a file because my rook is still on h8, and it's really hard for me to move my king out of the way because his knight's on e5, which is a really good square for it. So my king just never found safety in time. I always felt like I was 2 moves behind, which was really annoying to try to calculate. And then he told me after the game that actually, instead of playing g6, that was my mistake. I really should have just went king e7 and allowed him to win the a5 pawn. And he said, my rook is active, so it should be a draw. And I was like, wow. And I know, I love sacrificing pawns for activity, but I just didn't apply it in this scenario, in this endgame scenario. There's a lot of endgames where I have to remind myself that, okay, remember, I can sacrifice a pawn or two to get activity. But in this case, I just forgot to do that. I thought I didn't have to sacrifice a pawn. I thought I could just go king g6, g7, g6, and just move my king out of the way, and then I'd be in time to bring in my rook. But I never had enough time. So it's definitely interesting, and I got to play the best Maine player, so can't complain. Hopefully, bounce back in the next round. I just played a very, very exciting game. My opponent played the French defense, so I played e4 this time, not knight f3, and we got into some really crazy territory where, my knight's on c2, his knight's on f5, I played g4, and then I castle that way, and then he castles kingside anyways, and there was so much stuff happening. The d4 pawn was hanging for so many moves, and he just never took it, never had the opportunity to take it. And I end up thinking like the big moment here when he plays knight b4, I take, and then he opens up the a file for his a rook, and then I just go like I think for 24 minutes there, 25 minutes, and I go rook g1 or rook g3 or rook h3, queen g4, and then I sacrifice the rook on h7 and go queen h5, and then I sacrifice the bishop. And then I push my pawn. He forced to sacrifice the rook. And then I get my bishop in. Then I get my rook in. Then I sacrifice the bishop. And then I checkmate. So that was a pretty crazy game. I think I played pretty well. I don't know if g4... I don't know if I followed up with g4 the right way. Like, was I supposed to castle in that exact moment? I think so. But it's definitely, I do wonder what I would have done if he didn't castle. I really don't know. So we'll see what we see when we see what we see with the engine and with my annotations later. So I just played round 4, and I was playing an older gentleman. I had the black pieces, and I played the Philidor. So far, I've been in 4 games. I've played 2 different openings with white and 2 different openings against e4. So getting some variety in there. And what I did not know is that he is also a lifelong Philidor player. And he thought for like 20 minutes in like the first 6 moves, trying to decide which variation he's going to play against me. I ended up going bishop e2 and g4 here, and like just really going crazy. I ended up going d5, and he told me after the game that after e5 I should have gone knight d7, knight fd7, and I'm just not convinced that's the right move. I ended up going knight e4. That it's definitely more principled to go knight e4 than knight d7, but I'm not sure. And then later on, I was expecting him to take on e4 and just continue the game that way. But he didn't. He went queen d3 very quickly, and then went bishop b4, and suddenly I have a lot of pressure, and then he castles. So he pushes g4 and then castles. What is he? Me when I play the French against the French? Like so it was actually like, wow, this is like a position I would get with white. But in this case, I have the black pieces here, and I love being on both sides of an attack like that. And so I end up giving up my bishop pair to double his pawns, and then I play this move c5. He told me after the game that he thought knight d7 was a lot better. I wasn't convinced at the time. I thought knight d7 and he could just simply play f4 or maybe even bishop f4, but then there's rook e8. And so the main move I was calculating was c5. So it was c5, that was the main move, and I ended up playing that move, but I actually agree with them. I think knight d7 was actually better. The only thing I would have to consider is what happens if c4, so knight d7, c4, and then maybe knight takes e5, and maybe I'm doing good. My nose is itchy. Okay. And so yeah, that was. So c5 happened, and then he played f3. That was the main move I did not see in advance. I didn't realize he would play f3, which makes the position very, very crazy. And I take on d4 because I'm not going to hop my knight around in such a dumb manner. I don't move backwards, I move forwards. So I'm going to, so I took on d4, he took on e5, and we had like a reverse Oreo cookie sandwich with center pawns. He has doubled e pawns, double isolated e pawns, double isolated c pawns, and I have double isolated d pawns. Like, it was actually, how often do you see a position like that? That was crazy. That was insane. And then things started liquidating, and I saw a lot of pressure. I had the rook on d8, and eventually he just his king was just weaker than mine, and it was very tricky. My queen moved around to h4, and for me, my approach to whether or not to notate the move before I make my own move, or to just play my move before, is if my opponent makes their move before notating it, then it's no holds bars. So from a USCF ruling perspective, your notation has to be reasonably complete. So that's up. So you can't have more than 3 pairs of moves incomplete for your notation. So if your opponent makes a move, you are allowed by USCF rules to just make your own move without notating first to apply pressure on your opponent. However, I think it's kind of rude. Like, if I'm doing it to someone and they're notating before they make their own move, like I don't do it because it's just rude in my opinion. But if they do it first, game on. So my opponent did that. So he was in time pressure. I made my move. He made his move. I made my move. He made his move, and then I checkmated him. So in this case, it worked out. But gotta be. But yeah, I definitely, that is definitely an interesting nuance that some people ask me about. But I ended up winning that game. So now I'm 3 out of 4. Heading to the last round. I'm expecting to play Ted B. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I forgot what it is. Belanoff. There you go. I expect to play a master who's near his floor of 2200. So maybe I'll be able to make something happen that game. I'm probably gonna have black. I'm probably gonna have double black in this last game. So we'll see how that goes. I played Ted, and he played a really weird opening, and it's. And, whatever, I'm just going to play principal chess. Well, it turns out that principal chess got me into an IQP, and that IQP got me into a symmetrical position where I have less activity. And I hate those positions. But we kept going. He eventually won a pawn. I tried to get more activity in, and eventually he instigates a trade. I oblige because I'm going to get my rook to the second rank, and then I'm going to try to, use activity to not lose the game, even though I'm down a pawn. But then... he's pushing his pawn, so I sacrifice my bishop for 2 pawns, and now there's a 3-on-2, but all the pawns are on one side of the board. So I'm like, I actually got this. This is going to be a Herculean task, hopefully a Sisyphean task, to win this game for Ted. Well, I blundered a pawn, and I'm like, shoot. So now it's game over. So it was a futile attempt, but. Well, it's futile. So, anyways, I end the tournament with 3 out of 5, and that was that.
So just to recap the whole tournament in general, so finished 3 out of 5, and the rating report is out. I gained 6 rating points for all of my troubles at this event, and overall, I think the tournament ran pretty smoothly. I liked the venue a lot. The food was nearby. Maine is really cool. We're at the Portland Headlight right now. And yeah, so I think definitely would love to go to this event again if it wasn't so far away. But maybe someday I'll play in the Maine State Championship again and hopefully do better against number 1 in the state, number 1 and number 3 in the state. And now it's time for the 10.5 to 11 hour drive back.